This video is going to address the relevance of the issue satisfaction with ministry efforts. Hi, I'm Dr. Brent Van Hook, Director of Shepherd's Fold Ministries. When it comes to the relevance of this topic, we are referring to an extensive research project that we commissioned in 2019 that studied the predictors of well being among retirement age preachers and missionaries from over 12 denominations. Since that time, we have found that our study correlates well to all believers, whether or not one is part of active church leadership. And it correlates to people, believers in Christ of all ages, who want to have a lifelong kingdom impact and realizing that well being is part of that. As we look at this study, and I want to make a couple points. One is when we think about the answers to this question, those of you who took this 1 minute quiz and you've thought about your ministry efforts, we realize that ministry efforts take place in a lot of ways. Sunday school teachers, Bible study leaders, and much, much, much more. So this study can correlate well to all believers who have made some form of effort when it comes to making a difference for Christ and his kingdom through ministry. But once again, though, the results that we have relate to the study we had of ordained clergy from over 12 denominations. The second thing that I'd like to say is that it refers to efforts, not results. So we are talking about ministers who look back over their life and are thinking about the effort that they gave, not the results that came about of it, but rather the efforts that were made. So let me summarize the answers to this question. 1% of our participants chose the answer very dissatisfied with their ministry efforts. 3% said somewhat dissatisfied. 3% chose neither satisfied nor dissatisfied. 33% said somewhat satisfied, and 59% said very satisfied. Now, let me talk about the importance and the relevance of these answers. At the beginning of this overall project, the statisticians had several questions that helped establish a well being, an overall well being for every single participant. And so, in fact, they had it in numerical value. They knew how each participant was doing overall in their life, and they had, as I said, a numerical value for that. So, what I've done on this graphic is I have taken those numerical values and I've charted them on a traffic light. And you'll see each of the lights, green, yellow, and red, have 5 lines on them that represent numbers. So the 5 here at the bottom represent the best numbers possible in overall well-being, and the middle of the pack are the ones in yellow, and the ones in red, we would say numerically, statistically, these people are struggling overall in their life. In fact, this would be a point to say, hey, let's stop. Let's stop what we're doing. Let's take an overall understanding of what's going on in our life, because we need to get some things straightened out in order to see our overall well-being improve, that we may minister from a point of overall well-being and health. Okay, so what the statisticians did was everyone who chose dissatisfied, they averaged their well-being scores. And if we put it on the chart, you can see that it's the worst possible score, numerically speaking, from the study that we conducted. Next were those who said somewhat dissatisfied. Next to worst. One rung up the ladder is neither satisfied nor dissatisfied. Then a big leap, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down to those who were somewhat satisfied. Okay, the change now is they are satisfied. Then another 6 steps of overall well-being to those who are very satisfied. So a couple points to make regarding this. If there are any of us who look back over our life and are dissatisfied with our ministry efforts, or even on the fence about it, we want to take a fresh look at what has happened in the past and see if there is any way that we can have a more accurate understanding or find some way to address this issue. Because if there's some way to address this issue, We'll talk about that in a few moments. I believe that statistics show that our overall well being will improve. In other words, any form of dissatisfaction or neither satisfied nor dissatisfied seems to be an albatross, a weight that is weighing down the overall life of those who are carrying that with them. So let's take a good look at that. Okay, we here at Shepherd's Fold have a couple beliefs that I'd like to share with you. The first is this, that we all have something to share. Secondly, we all have something to learn. So here's what I'd like to do. Those of you who would say your answer to this question is that you are very satisfied, I'm going to ask you to reflect on what it is that is going through your mind as you look back over your years of ministry efforts and what has led you to that. Were there certain habits that happened back then? Was there some understanding or perspective of the past that helps you today? What is it? And if there's anything that is transferable, shareable, I'm going to ask you, because this is a strength of yours, I'm going to ask you if there's anything that could be shared to email me at brent@shepherdsfoldministries.com. And when appropriate, we'd like to make that available to others. Secondly, we all have something to learn. In fact, if the way our research came together, we would say to people, if you could do one thing, if you could do have one improvement area in your life, one improvement opportunity, and you knew it would make a big difference in every area of your life, would you be willing to do that? Would you be willing to, through humility, say, if there's some way that I could improve an area that is not yet strong in my life, I'd be willing to do that? The results of this might be big. And so we're going to offer a first step. 30 minutes or less that it would take to look at that. Before we do that, let me go back and say, looking at this chart before, again, if there's any dissatisfaction, or even if there's some satisfaction, but you wish there could be more, I'd like to address that. Now, what would be the cause of dissatisfaction? Perhaps if someone was lazy, or if they didn't give their very best, not a lot we can do or you could do about that right now. But I can't help but think that some people in some situations, it might be accurate to say, are too hard on themselves when it comes to the efforts they gave. And, or there may be others, or some of the same, who would say all of my efforts gets confused with results. Clearly, I didn't give enough effort because the results weren't like I first pictured it when I first felt called to ministry, and I thought that the whole world was going to change when I stepped into some form of active ministry service. So, if the problem relates to the perspective and the lens through which we are looking at our past, I'd like to address that. One issue I believe is that God did more than we realized here on earth through our efforts, through His work through our efforts. And so I don't think that we're going to have a very accurate understanding this side of heaven of all that God did. So, with that in mind, let me offer, go back to, if we could address that, let me offer a first step that could be taken in order to see someone's answers move toward very satisfied. So, I'm going to offer two suggestions. The first is, and I'm circling this video, picture of a video, and I'll make that link available for you, entitled Him Again. It's my interview with Dr. Scott Daniels. The idea here is, since if you believe like I do that we don't have the full picture this side of heaven of all that God did through us, then I think it's more than fair to spend a few moments reflecting on what God did and giving Him praise for the God victories that happened in our lives and in His ministry through us. The more we do that, I think we'll have a more accurate understanding of what happened in the past. Sometimes I believe that ministers have a very full, accurate understanding of all the criticisms and the whinings and the problems that took place, but they have only the smallest glimpse of all the good that was done. Therefore, I think it's healthy to give God thanks and to recount His work, as it says, to think about that and to give Him praise for what He has done. If you'd like to hear a video and see a video that talks about that, we're going to make this, it's about a 15-minute video available for you. Second thing we can say is, hey, as long as we have breath, not only are we to praise Him, I believe that God can continue to make a godly influence in our lives. And so, if we did drop the ball in the past, or there was a lack of effort or a laziness that was able to kind of creep in and steal some of the best efforts that could have been made, well, that's in the past, but we do have today. Let's not let today result in another regret. Should it be accurate to understand it in that way? Let's not let today be a point of regret in any way. Let's do something. God could work in our lives to do something. And so here's a chart that can help you with that, to find the things that you are good at doing, the things you enjoy doing, and what the world needs, then God is pleased with it, and find a godly purpose for that. I heard an example the other day of a man who loved to fish, and someone said to him, "Why don't you go to your church and find those, especially single parents who have a couple kids, who would appreciate the chance for two or three of those kids to go fishing with you, and find some way to have a godly purpose to this thing, to the activity that you enjoy doing. You may even be good at it, and the world needs friendship. Combine those things, and mentoring and care. Combine those things and do something. So today, do something. And we can't change the past, but we can make the most of today and trust the results in God's hands. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I believe God has done more than we might realize this side of heaven. So thank you for the work that you are doing, and may we continue to see Him at work in our lives and have an accurate understanding that God is at work through us.